Hello, my loves. I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on my channel, where we are talking about the multi-dimensional approach to rapidly and radically healing and transforming during and after narcissistic abuse. And I wanted to talk today about victim shaming and narcissistic abuse. I think this is a massive thing that needs to be addressed, right? Because we've got a narrative, that is it's almost it's very counterproductive to healing and actually acknowledging the severity of what happens in these cycles, and also is continuing to blame people who are abused rather than put the focus on what happened to people and the abusers. So we've got a whole society of narcissistic abuse going on that seems to be getting worse, where there's not enough accountability, there's not enough awareness, and we tend to put the blame on the victim. I've spoken many times about how I've coached many people in my life, right? I did various things in my businesses, but part of it was coaching. So I was very into the personal development world. But a lot of what they teach you in personal development is useful, right? But can be very counterproductive to people who have been traumatized or in abuse cycles. Things like, right, you have to take 100% responsibility for everything that happens to you. When you've been victimized by a narcissist, it is not your fault. It is completely impossible. You are in a terrible situation. And there's not much you can do to avoid it, because it's an extreme circumstance of completely destroying you, yeah? I've had a recent narcissistic attack, and they go for the jugular. They will absolutely do everything they can to tear your world apart. That's what they are. That's what they do. I read, there's an influencer that I've followed for a number of years that I really like. She's on Instagram, and she's done many things over the years that I've really loved. And recently she wrote about, she kind of joined a cult by accident. It was a spiritual community, and we've got a lot of spiritual narcissists in our in our world right now, yeah? Religious leaders, spiritualists, people that are calling themselves New Age, but they're really running a cult. They're really running a cult mentality, yeah? So she's always been a very conscious human, right? Very conscious, very into her own spiritual development, personal development, but she got caught in this cult with the narcissist, and it completely traumatized her, made her completely sick. Yeah, her nervous system is completely wrecked. She's had to take almost a year off to recover because of the effect on her body. This is a woman who was thriving, who was very spiritually aware, very conscious, right? So it doesn't matter how spiritual you are and how conscious you are. You could still get caught up if you don't know what you're dealing with. And there's such a high level of deception and manipulation in this, that because in this cycle, the narcissist, deals in lies and deception with some truth in it. It's not just one thing, which is why it's so effective. If it was just abuse, you'd walk away. But there's this love bombing and these highs. There's truth and lies. There's highs and lows. It's all very extreme. And when the other side of the coin happens to you, it's hard to put the two together. So she's written some very insightful things about her journey that really made me acknowledge, right, how anyone can get caught up in this, and two, how destructive it is, but also three, that people think they're above this, and that's why they shame victims. Like she wrote, when I used to hear about narcissists and sociopaths, I just used to think I'd never get caught up with one of those. I thought I was too smart to be manipulated, yeah? That's what people think, because we think we are too smart. How could someone deceive us, yeah? But because a lot of it's going on energetically, and they know how to play on exactly what you want, your true desires, and for her it was her spiritual growth, yeah? Then, there's this stage of a honeymoon period, this is what she experienced, where she thought she'd found the community that recognized her, that absolutely got her, that she was completely on a growth journey with. And then there were some things that were going on that were kind of I suppose, isolating her into that community and shaming and rejecting people who didn't agree with the philosophies, right? And of course, in that spiritual community, they'll just say, well, that person's not so aware. And there were rules about never speak out about the leader, don't be a victim, take control of your life, all those kind of messages where don't be a victim. You're not allowed to talk about what happened to you, because then you're just in a low vibration. Yeah? You're a lesser being. You're not taking what they teach in personal development, total responsibility for your life. But things are going to happen in life that are not our fault, are not our responsibility, that we couldn't have controlled, and that victimize you. And especially in narcissistic abuse cycles, where it's got nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. So this victim shaming, not only have you been terrorized, right, if you dealt with narcissistic abuse, but now you're made to feel guilty and ashamed of what happened to you because you're a victim. And that's somehow in our society at the moment something to be ashamed of, which means that we don't talk about our challenges, we don't talk about our situations, or we get looked down on and judged harshly because people think there's something wrong with you, if something bad happened to you. And if you're not able to cope with it, right, and you're not doing what they think you should be doing, or bouncing back in the way someone thinks you should, because they don't understand the extent of the damage that it does to a human being. I mean, this lady said that she found out later that some people almost lost their lives, the effect it had on their body and their nervous system, because the shock of someone that you've trusted and loved, especially a spiritual leader, a parent, you know, someone that, I mean, any of us that have been through these cycles with lovers, friends, people in authority that have betrayed us and shocked us to our core, right? That happened to me recently, right? Where you're just shocked to your core. You cannot believe it when you see it. You can't believe it, especially if this person has seemed to have very strong shared values, especially in a spiritual community. Trust me, there are spiritual narcissists out there right now like terrorists. Literally pillaging people, because of course when you work in spirituality, personal development, anything like that, healing, right, which is why we need more of us doing this kind of job, there are some people that will exploit people's trauma, because when you're traumatized, right, when you're down is the time that you're going to look for healing most. It's the time you're going to look for spirituality most. It's the time when you're going to look for development most, which is why I say over and over again, I am not New Age. I channel ancient wisdom that is the same wisdom that's been with us since the beginning of time. There is nothing New Age about me. And some of this New Age stuff I think is dangerous, from what I'm hearing and seeing. I don't know a lot about it. I don't, you know, but from what I'm seeing, not a lot. I mean, the spiritual principles that we've known since the beginning of time, all the great teachers talk about over and over again. Our job in this lifetime is to know how to apply them, which I can help you with. And, you know, we go on a journey in our own lives with. If we just look at our lives as success and failure, right, and I'm thinking it should look a certain way because that's what society is telling us or other people are judging us for, we're going to miss our own spiritual growth and evolution, because actually we're all here as a soul on a unique journey, right? So what happens to us and what we have to grow through is often part of our path, yeah? So like you can't really compare my journey to your journey in the sense of what it should look like, because we've all got karmic cycles to break, we've all got ancestral DNA to generational trauma to overcome, we've got trauma of this lifetime, we've also got our own unique purpose, right? So our job is to actually come into our authentic power and truth, our self and soul alignment, and find out who we really are and what we really came to do. But like, and that isn't just like get the things. That's not just like I get, you know, what society tells you should have. It's actually what's going to grow and evolve us as a human being, yeah? And that means that nothing in your life is actually wrong. There's nothing wrong with anything in our lives. It just has to be understood in the true spiritual context, right? Of what's on our path, why is it on our path, what have we come to overcome in this lifetime? But we do want to be very mindful, like I teach you all the time, of who we share our trauma with, yeah? Of the scariest thing, I think, especially reading what this lovely lady wrote, is like when we find something that we feel is so right for us, could be a person, could be a community, could be anything like that, right, that we stay discerning. Because sometimes, like, when we find something that gives us a rush, we lose ourselves in that rather than gain ourselves through our exposure to it. So I would say in my program, Sovereign, what people do is they gain themselves. I don't make them dependent on me. I put the work back on them to do. I guide them, but I do not make you dependent on me or adopt anything that I think. I teach all the time. If it resonates with you and you want to adopt it, use it. If it's not resonant with you, throw it away. And also, like, my job is to help you find you, right? To understand your journey, to understand the spiritual context of it, not to join me in a cult mentality and believe everything I believe. In fact, you don't have to believe everything I believe for my work to work with you, right? Because my work's designed to bring you into your true self-expression, your true authentic power, your true soul mission, yeah? And that's what the best healers and guides are going to do. But anyone giving you, so let's look at this cult thing in the spiritual community, blanket rules, right? If you have to believe something or do something or agree with something or in any way worship a leader, in any way, you know, if you decide to leave a community and you get threatened or, you know, emotionally manipulated to come back. So often with these sort of cult leaders, they'll sort of be very dramatic, like crying if you leave and then threatening you and putting all this fear in you, you know. If you're feared into anything, it's a fucking problem, yeah? People that are here for your highest expansion and growth, we don't fear you. I don't fear you. I'm not like, if you don't join my program, you will never evolve. You're going to evolve anyway, right? You just get to choose to evolve in a way that's supported in a beautiful community with people doing the same kind of work, with tools that I know work, but there's other tools you can use as well. You know, like, so it's like, if you feel feared into doing something, question it. If you feel love for it, that's awesome. And then the challenges, like what she experienced, where she felt finally recognised in this community. But I think it was fear-based because she felt a lot of fear about if she left or, you know, and she just lost herself. She lost all her creativity, her self-expression. So again, another thing to note in this situation is like, am I becoming more of myself through this experience? So my clients always say that they become more of themselves. They find themselves again. They become creative. Am I becoming, this is the biggest test, in a relationship, in a community, in healing, in anything. Am I becoming more of myself in this experience, or am I losing myself? The minute you start losing yourself, massive red flag, get the fuck out. Sorry for swearing, guys that don't like swearing. I do swear, but not out of abuse, just out of expression. But, you know, if you are becoming more of yourself, you feel more of yourself, you feel more in your creativity, you finally feel like you're coming home to yourself, that's a good place for you. Anywhere you have to lose yourself to be there, right? So I would definitely say I'm proud that in my communities, people become more of themselves. They're free to express themselves. They do not have to agree with me or each other, but they get to be their fullest expression of self and soul. That is my ultimate mission on this planet. Anywhere you have to lose yourself, no good. That's a massive red flag. Victim shaming, can we all be aware, right? What we want on this planet is empathy and compassion. No one deserves to be shamed, to be victim shamed. And even if someone, you know, we're not all the same. You know, I'm a highly sensitive empath. I've had to do a lot of work on myself to be strong enough to hold what I hold, because by nature we absorb everything and like we feel very deeply, and like we're not actually that equipped for a hard world. So like, you know, we have to learn tools to do that, and I have, and we do, and you can, and you will be very powerful if you can, because if we learn that, if you are highly sensitive and empathetic, then you get to bring your magic with a strong foundation where you don't get abused. But we're more likely to be abused as empaths because we're just more compassionate. We forgive easily, and forgiveness doesn't mean you let the behaviour carry on. But we've got to understand that victim shaming is inappropriate because everyone's got a different threshold, right? So what I can take is different, especially as I've trained myself over many years, to what someone else can take. They're not being a victim when they're in pain. I don't understand like where this is coming from in terms of this narrative that we, you know, personal development, for me personally, I've learned so many tools in it, and I teach you all the time that I love what I do because it's integrated in healing. Like, so I do like a mixture of kind of energy healing, kind of like therapeutic stuff, psychology stuff, and also transformational stuff, which gives you the whole thing, which means that you actually get to transform, not just heal, but actually actively transform into your higher self. But some of the things in personal development that will work for people who haven't been abused, by the way, they're very helpful for people who haven't been abused, but people who've been traumatized, highly traumatized and abused, they can actually be so counterproductive. They'll make you feel completely wrong and actually can damage you more, because it's not all your responsibility. Not everyone you meet is mirroring you back to you. It's not all your creation. Yeah, sometimes you're targeted. Sometimes you've got things going on in the spiritual and psychic realms that are beyond what personal development can teach you, and it's not yours to own, and it's not your fault, and you're not being a victim or deserve to be shamed for knowing that something's going on. So some of it is a narrative that actually protects abusers in this victim shaming, because it's so I mean, why isn't it shameful to be an abuser? Why is it shameful to be a victim of it? Right? So let's just think about that. I'd love to hear your comments and what you think about this, and also how we might change this narrative a little bit, because yes, we are responsible for our own lives, right? We can only control ourselves in the universe. We're kind of in the driving seat of our own being. But at the same time, we are in a community, like in a world, and like there are things happening that are not because you're coming from a victim consciousness all the time. Sometimes you're targeted and things happen and they've got nothing to do with you. In fact, you know, a lot of the time when I've been on a, you know, really good role is when narcissists sort of see me in my power and they get really annoyed about it. Like, they don't like people who are spiritual in their power. They don't like light workers in their power. They don't like people, you know, confident who are here to do change. They really don't. They love to bring people down, and that's not because I was being a victim at all, right? And I'm sure for you as well, like a lot of the time a narcissist will either target you at a very low point in your life or when you're actually gaining your confidence and gaining your power, yeah, because it's a game to them to bring you down. That does not make you a victim. There's a big difference between being a victim and being victimized, and I don't think any of that conversation is that healthy, because all that matters is your emotional experience and how you're going to overcome it and know the truth of what happened. And all I care about actually is the truth. Yeah? And the truth is, if something terrible's happened to you, that doesn't make you what they're calling like a victim or worthy of being shamed. That means something's happened to you and you have the right to own your human experience. You know, there's a kind of narrative that wants us to be robots and like not understand that we are human. We get to, you know, the human experience is going to be full of the whole thing, like duality, like happiness and pain and sadness, you know, joy and anger and all the things that come up. And it's our job to know how to navigate that in a way that's healthy, which means that when I'm angry, I don't just take it out on you. I process, I get clear, I regulate my system, I understand the message, and then I powerfully communicate and set new standards for my life, that kind of thing, which is what I teach all the time in Sovereign and stuff. But like, it's not that we're supposed to have none of these heavy emotions and that if you're going through something, you're just a victim and need to be blamed. That's where we're going wrong, and that's what's enabling narcissism. So I'd love to hear your views. Lots of love, guys. I'll speak to you soon.